What is up, NFL fans, and welcome to the very first edition of a new show that we're launching here on the Fans First Sports Network NFL page and also on our Fans First Sports Network YouTube channel, which is called For Your Viewing Pleasure. I am Jeff Hartman, joined by Wesley Coleman. What's up, Wesley? How's it going?
It's going good. I guess the sports dead season wasn't as bad this year because of the Olympics, but I'm definitely ready for pro football.
Yes. I think we all can agree on that. If you're watching this video, you love the NFL, and here we are almost a little under 2 weeks away from the regular season kicking off in week 1. And what we decided to do was to do this show now and kind of let you know what's going to be coming up every single week as we do this preview show. So for your viewing pleasure, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the slate of games. We're both going to have different opinions. We might agree on some things, we might disagree on others, but we're going to break games down into 4 categories. Must-see TV, so those are your marquee matchups. Doesn't always necessarily mean a primetime game. That's important to note. Your fantasy lineup games, where obviously you're going to be watching them for fantasy football purposes. Sneaky good matchups that aren't being talked about but could be a really good game. And then the game that we would say you could only watch one, where we have to pick one game that if you can only watch one game, that's the one you would watch. So this is a different way of previewing games, Wesley. When I texted you about doing the show, you seem to be really on board with it. I think it's important that we're not going to talk about every single game on the docket, right?
Yeah, I mean we're not going to talk about every game. We're also not going to lean into our biases of our
Yes.
favorite teams and all. Like we're going to try and take that out of the equation and really look at it from a holistic point of view of what games should be the most entertaining. So just an NFL fan.
Yeah, because obviously I'm a Steeler fan. He's a Saints fan. When it comes to if you could only watch one game, we're both going to say our respective favorite teams every single week. So we will try to keep our biases aside. But today, on today's show, we're not going to look into week 1 yet. That'll be next week. We're going to start looking at the NFL divisions, and we're going to put them into teams within the division as can't miss, can't watch. And then we'll also look at overall the most competitive divisions in the NFL. Are you ready, Wesley?
I'm ready.
Let's start with the AFC. We're going to go through all the AFC divisions, and then we'll go through the NFC. AFC North. A lot of people would say that this is the most competitive division. We'll get to that at the end of the show. I don't say that just because I'm a Steeler fan. Just from last year, every team had a winning record. 3 teams make the postseason. But out of the AFC North, who would you say are the can't-miss teams in the AFC North?
So, I mean, it's going to be the Ravens and Bengals for me. Just with can Joe Burrow come back and be Joe Burrow again? And then just the competitive, Lamar Jackson's got new receivers and a little bit of differences there. Those are the 2 high-flying teams. Having said that, I just want to – I know that I was going to laugh because you said that about the Steelers. So if you just look at odds, this is the only division where every team in the division has a plus 750 or greater chance to win the division.
Wow.
So technically, Vegas odds, it is the most competitive division in football. And I think, just throwing the Browns are going to be interesting because they have a great defense. I mean, they were a stellar defense last year. And then the Steelers, I mean, the Russell Wilson, Justin Fields stuff is interesting.
Well, I'll tell you this. This is a great starting point for me, not because I'm a Steeler fan, because this is a great question for the listeners to be able to hear exactly how we both view games. So when you say a can't miss team, when you, Wesley Coleman, are describing a team as a can't miss team, what exactly are you looking at? Are you looking more offensively? Are you looking more defensively? Because I could make the argument that if you're a defensive minded person, the 2 teams there can't miss are the Steelers and Browns, because they probably have the best defenses in this division. But if you're a high-flying offense type guy, well, yeah, you're not going to go with the Steelers or Browns because, well, Deshaun Watson and the Steelers technically don't have a quarterback right now. So what do you see when you think of can't miss? What do you look for?
Well, I mean, if we're taking some of our biases out of this.
Yes.
So the NFL is trying to route us towards offense being better and us being excited about that. And then also, like, the players with the personalities are going to get the publicity as well. Out of this division, I think that Joe Burrow, I mean, everybody went crazy when he showed up at camp looking like Eminem this year. And there's a lot that's gone on. Jamar Chase is a personality, and then T. Higgins and all his contract stuff. So the Bengals, and can they protect Joe Burrow, keep him safe? And that leads to a really fun offense to watch. I like defenses a lot, but the Bengals offense is a fun one to watch go out there and play.
I agree with you. The NFL, fantasy football, the gambling aspect of things, it's all about offense. So in terms of this division, can't miss teams are exactly what you said. The Baltimore Ravens, they do have more explosive playmakers on that offense, and the Cincinnati Bengals with T. Higgins coming back and Jamar Chase. I agree. But I will say, if you like defense, there's a lot in this division that you could like too, because I think the Steelers defense, not being a homer, if they can stay healthy, is going to be really, really good this year. So we'll see how that pans out. Let's go to the AFC South. This is a division which is, I think it's top heavy because you have the Houston Texans and CJ Stroud, and we all know what they did last year. A lot of question marks everywhere else. I think Tennessee with Will Levis is interesting. I think that when you talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence getting the bag this offseason and Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis, what is that going to look like? There's been mixed reviews from him so far this preseason and training camp, but let's go down the categories. Can't miss, can't watch. What do you think about this division?
I think the competitiveness of it is being oversold. This is the Texans division. What they did last year, if there's one of two things going to happen, either CJ Stroud takes a step and becomes even better, which is a lot,
Yeah.
or defenses, with a year of tape, figure out a way to play him, and does he fall back to earth in his sophomore season? If he plays the way he did last year, this is to me a one-team division. I'm never been the Jaguars believer. And the Anthony Richardson stuff is really interesting. He was drafted a year ago as somebody that they were talking about he needed 3 or 4 years to figure out how to play football.
Yeah.
He showed that he can be a fun, exciting, at least fantasy football player. Whether or not that can lead to wins, I think the Colts have done the best they can to set up a player like him, though, with their running game and with a decent defense that they can. So there's some interesting stuff there. I think this is the Texans division, though.
I agree. If I were to rank the teams that are can't miss, it's Houston. Can't watch. Man, I have no interest in watching the Tennessee Titans. There's just nothing intriguing about the Tennessee Titans. Will Levis puts mayonnaise in his coffee, which makes me want to vomit. And so that's no good for me. I'm not a fan of his. But ultimately, like you said, Anthony Richardson just seems like an injury waiting to happen. And what's behind him? Joe Flacco. Yeah, not interested in that either. So for me, Jacksonville is the one team that if there's going to be a competition in this division, I think they are the contenders that could maybe rise up and give Houston a run for their money. But I think this, like I said, is a very top heavy division. Anything to add about the South before we move on?
I've never believed in Trevor Lawrence. I think they've put a lot of weapons around him. So if he, after getting that money, like he's got to actually show something this year, there's going to be a lot of upheaval there with Jaguar fans.
Yeah. See Cleveland Browns, Deshaun Watson as example.
Man.
So, okay, let's go to the AFC East. Another weird division when you think about what are the New York Jets going to be like? Is Aaron Rodgers going to return to form? Is he just going to be a shell of his former self? What about the Buffalo Bills, who got rid of a lot of talent for salary cap purposes? Not really sure they replaced that talent. Then you go down to Miami, and you have the Miami mess of Tua spouting off about Brian Flores and all the stuff there, and then New England with Gerard Mayo as the head coach. It just seems like a giant cluster F is what it seems like, that division. But what do you think about the AFC East? This could be a competitive group.
This is my most competitive division in the AFC, and it's because of not all 4 teams, but there's 3 teams here that if you can't just see how any of the 3 can win the division, then you're being a homer for one of the other teams. Yeah. Because I can make a case for the Jets, Bills, and Dolphins, any of the 3 of them, to run away with this division. I can make a case for, besides them beating each other up, for any of them being the top seed in the AFC. I think the Jets, Bills, and Dolphins, really interesting the way that they're going to play each other. And it's been a while since there's been all 3 of those teams could win the entire AFC, not just their division. So I think it's pretty exciting what we're going to see.
If you had to pick from those 3 teams, Miami, New York Jets, and Buffalo, as a can't miss team, like I'm going to want to watch as many games as I can of this team, which one are you picking?
I mean, love him or hate him, everybody's going to watch Aaron Rodgers.
That's
if
true.
He's healthy, if he makes it past 3 snaps, it's a story. And that team's got some personalities. I think they've got some not as talented coaches as they do players. And if they still lose despite the better players, I mean, it could be an interesting story all the way around, whether they're winning or losing. if Aaron Rodgers just stays healthy.
Yeah. For me, it depends on what month of the year we're talking about. Let me explain. Aaron Rodgers is the storyline. As long as he's in the lineup, there's going to be this undercurrent of Aaron Rodgers talk. If it's early in the season, I want to watch Miami because when it's warm out, they're going to be running up and down the field, putting up 70 points at times. They're going to be a high flying, fun of offense to watch. But when the weather gets cold, they go into their shell. That's when I want to watch Buffalo because that's when Buffalo and Josh Allen just seem to take over games and they want to. He does those Superman type things. But I think we can both agree can't watch. Does anyone want to watch the New England Patriots this year?
I can't imagine why.
Unless you're a Patriots fan. I mean, Gerard, I don't know. Drake May is probably going to be the starter. I don't know if that's official, but with Jacoby Brissett hurting his shoulder in the final preseason game, it seems like it's inevitable. I just don't have any interest there. So, all right.
No interest. They cut Bailey Zappi, by the way, and
Yeah.
but don't care. No idea who's playing in New England. I'm not interested.
Okay, let's go to the last division in the AFC, the AFC West. Again, really interesting. There's been a lot of changes with these teams. Whether you're talking about, I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs are the Chiefs, and they're going to be the front runners in this division no matter what. But outside of the Chiefs, you talk about Harbaugh taking over in LA, even though Justin Herbert's already hurt, and they said he should be good to go once the regular season rolls around. You talk about year 2 with Sean Payton, your buddy from formerly of the Saints. He's got Bo Nix as the quarterback, and then Gardner Minshew in Las Vegas with the Raiders. And people are saying that defense is going to be better. I don't know if I believe that it's going to be a lot better than what it was last year. This, to me, if you're talking about competitive divisions, I might rank this up as the least competitive division in the AFC, but that's just me. What do you think?
I mean, there's a lot. I expect the Chargers to improve this year with coaching because I thought Brandon Staley is one of the worst coaches in football.
Yes.
And so them improving for love or hate Harbaugh, he is a football guy who is going to make things better there for Justin Herbert. And I think that Justin Herbert's struggles haven't necessarily been of his own doing. I think he's a very talented quarterback. So I think Harbaugh's going to put him in a good position. So I could see a little bit there. I mean, the Chiefs are just a better team than everybody else here. And again, just handicapping all of it. This is if the Chargers are struggling, the Chiefs easily win the AFC because this is 6 easy wins for them. And they're on their way to 12 or 13, 14 wins because they just go undefeated in their division. And I think it's almost criminal. It's criminal what the Raiders are doing because I don't know if they're trying to win football games this year. Besides just having a talented defensive line.
Yeah.
And I think the Broncos know they're going to struggle, but they're committed to Bo Nix getting some experience.
What do you think about the combination of Sean Payton and Bo Nix in Denver?
I think Bo Nix should probably just be quiet and listen a lot. Sean Payton's not going to be probably friendly. He's not going to have the coddling relationship that some rookie quarterbacks would need. But he's going to be coached well. He's going to learn things about NFL offensive football that had never crossed his mind before. And so if he's a sponge and if he has the physical talent, I mean, there is something there, and that's the person for him to learn from, but it's just not going to be packaged in a pretty nice, polite package. Would
you agree that if there's a team that rises up and competes with the Chiefs, not wins a division, but competes with them and makes it, we'll say in the last third of the season, it makes it competitive, would you say that's the Chargers, or would you go a different direction?
No, I mean, the Chargers are the only ones that I think can possibly do such.
Okay. All right. So that's a wrap on the AFC. Let's move on to the NFC now. The NFC, we're going to start with the NFC North again. I think this is a sneaky competitive division. When you talk about Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers, Jordan Love with a very small sample size getting the bag himself this past offseason. You have the Chicago Bears. They've been all over the map because of Hard Knocks and Caleb Williams and and they actually put some weapons around him. When you talk about Keenan Allen and DJ Moore still there, when you're talking about the Detroit Lions, who they continue to be a story and they continue to be a good team. They're not going to, I don't see a step back. I think if anyone is going to be the bottom feeder, it's the Minnesota Vikings, who had put a lot of stock into JJ McCarthy. His season's done before it really ever starts with a torn meniscus. So what do you think about the NFC North here?
I'm I'm a fan of it. I think that the Bears are going to surprise some people, even with a rookie quarterback. Caleb Williams has shown some interesting stuff, and they've put him in a position with their the offense they're putting around him to where he's not going to have excuses for failure later on in the season. I don't understand the Jordan Love thing. I'm still just reeling from him getting such a large contract by playing like 7 good games in
It's
his NFL
desperation,
career.
man. It's a desperation move because if what else are you going to do?
Very much, but everybody's like giving them credit like he earned the contract, and it's
Oh
just
yeah,
crazy to me. He might end up being okay, but if the Saints make a field goal in week 3 last year, the Packers don't even make the playoffs. And like, does this all look different? Like, I get it. They did make the playoffs, and then they beat a terrible Dallas Cowboys team on the road. And so I think it just got all kind of fluffed up without a lot of reasoning. But yeah, the Lions are going to have the attitude that Dan Campbell brings and all. I still think that they go as high as Jared Goff can take them. And so it's pretty interesting for a established team, established coach with a okay quarterback playing in a possibly elite future rookie quarterback in the Chicago Bears. By the end of the season, which one kind of takes over?
Yeah. I'm not buying into Caleb Williams. Let's talk about the Bears for a second. He makes some phenomenal plays, and everyone is just looping these plays together and saying, look at what he can do. Yeah, the potential's there.
Mm-hmm.
He's also a rookie. And when the NFL regular season starts and people are game planning for him, I'm expecting him to struggle. Will the struggles be to the level of Justin Fields in Chicago? Probably not. I think he's a little bit more talented as a passer than Fields is. Still, nonetheless, I'm not a buyer or believer in the Bears. I'm not a believer in Sam Darnold doing anything. So they're out. You don't have a quarterback in this league. You can't win. So they're out. I don't care how talented the defense is. So now you're looking at just those 2 teams in Green Bay and Detroit. And I'm still going to give the nod to Detroit, even though I think Green Bay's wide receiving core is some of the best in the league, maybe up there with Houston in terms of talent and depth, just phenomenal. You're giving the nod to Detroit though in this division?
Yep. I'm going to give the nod to Detroit, but I think that I agree with you. Caleb Williams is going to struggle as a rookie, but I think that when we're talking about down the stretch in those last 4 or 5 games, he's going to have some experience and keep it together. I think that the division becomes close at the end with the Bears jumping over the Packers and challenging the Lions.
All right. Interesting. I like that hot take. Let's go to the NFC South, your favorite division. It was arguably, actually, it wasn't arguably, it was the worst division in football last year by far. And I got to say that in terms of like the competitive level, I'm going with this is the least competitive division in the NFC. Maybe that's competitive, but maybe they're all 9-7 going into the final week type of competition. I don't know. You're going to try and sell me on the Saints, I'm sure. Atlanta, I think, has taken a big step forward with their quarterback situation being the way it is. Raheem Morris and the drafting of Michael Penix, we're just going to leave that to the side right now. Carolina, I think, is a dumpster fire. Bryce Young, I still think, was one of the worst picks as first overall in a really long time. I'm not a believer in him. And then I think Tampa Bay is a team that no one's talking about. No one's talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Mike Evans is back. Baker Mayfield signs back with that team. I think they're going to be, again, competitive. But you're a Saints fan, so tell me what I should think about the NFC South.
I think that everybody's overrating the Falcons, who in general just don't have a super talented team. And I'm wondering if Raheem Morris is going to end up being known as a good NFL head coach. I'm not sold on that. He had a whole lot of talent around him for the Rams, around all coaches and players.
Yeah.
And he's not going to have that same thing in Atlanta. But I agree with you. This is the Buccaneers division. They should win it. I think the Saints have a lot of struggles on the offensive line and the talent positions at running back and wide receiver were very, very thin. I don't see us surprising a lot of people but I agree with what you said. Atlanta, Tampa Bay, and New Orleans, somebody's going to win this division at 9-8. It's very competitive. It's competitive to see if anybody can get to 10 wins, but they're just only competitive with each other.
What's the word with them amongst the Saints fan base with the quarterback position? I know that you've tweeted out about Spencer Rattler, and I said, "Don't fall for it, dude. We've been through this in Pittsburgh. Don't fall for the preseason success." But what's the fan base thinking there? Because Carr's time seems to be up there in New Orleans, and what are they going to do after?
Yeah, Carr had a couple of like interactions with teammates last year with some offensive linemen and some receivers where he didn't come across as like the inspiring leader. He kind of more whined a little bit and confronted people in the wrong situations. And sometimes when it was his fault, he seemed to be kind of blaming other players. So that hasn't been super endearing. He randomly throws some inaccurate balls that look like they're going to get wide receivers hurt because he throws balls that lead somebody into a defender or too high. It hasn't been great. That combined with the Spencer Rattler hype of playing better than okay in the preseason has led to everybody just wigging out about how quickly Spencer Rattler can be starting. There's a reason Spencer Rattler was a 5th round quarterback. He probably deserved to be a 3rd round quarterback if we're just being honest. And he's playing right now, I think, better than some of the 1st round quarterbacks were. He's at least showing something. He's still got a long way to go, and he needs to be, if he could be the number 2 to where he gets all the extra snaps this whole year and not take a single snap in a real football game this year, that'll be the best thing for Spencer Rattler.
Well, as a guy that is now in his, what is this, year 4? No, season 4 of quarterback purgatory. You are on the verge of being in that same. I'll welcome you with open arms. It's just like Bruce Willis and Die Hard. Welcome to the party, pal. Like welcome. That's what it's going to be for you in the NFC South with the New Orleans Saints. But let's go to the NFC East now. They used to call it the Beast of the East. I think that's a joke. You have the Philadelphia Eagles, who, I'm sorry, I can't get last season's finish out of my brain when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles. They can spout off about trading for Jahan Dotson, picking up Saquon Barkley in free agency, the draft class of Quinyon Mitchell. I don't care. There's something about the way that team finished last year that just sticks with me. And they lost some really core players like Jason Kelsey as example. I think the New York Giants are awful. I think Daniel Jones is awful. I think they're going to prove that they're awful. And then you have the Dallas Cowboys, who give CD Lamb a record-breaking contract just a day ago, actually, when we record this. And when you have all of this mess, and oh my God, who's the last team? Washington with Jaden Daniels at quarterback. Your boy from LSU. I know you're an LSU guy, and you have high hopes for him. I still think this is a 2-horse race between Dallas and Philly for the division. You agree or disagree?
Yeah, and whoever wins this division is going to have all kinds of hype, and they're probably not going to be very good either. It's just I agree with you about the Eagles. I think, again, the Eagles, we got to hear a lot this year about Jalen Hurts and his offensive coaches not being on the same page.
Yeah.
And it's weird the way that was aired. And then I don't know if it's fixed. Saquon Barkley, I think, is one of the best running backs in football for the 4.5 games he's going to play this year. And I mean, I think he'll be huge in those 4 games for the Eagles. They'll be dangerous. But I agree, and it's not just the way they finished last year. And I harped on this a lot last year, but I think they started 9-0 or 10-0 or whatever it was. But they were losing 7 of those games in the last 3 minutes, and they just. And I'm overstating, but it was they were losing. Or if you watch those games, they did not look like the better team in most of those games. And there's something to be said for finishing and scoring at the end and having more points, but they were not a 10-0 team at all when it came out that way. And then I'm interested with the Cowboys. Obviously, they just signed CD Lamb. If they don't get Dak's deal done before the season, I think that's going to be a big kind of cloud looming over them all year. And I'm not sure if they can get it done. I'm not sure how they can pay CD Lamb, Micah Parsons, and Dak Prescott on the same team. I don't think it works.
They can't. And yeah, I just want to chime in on Dallas real quick. Everyone's like, Dallas was so good last year. And you said, they weren't a very good team when we talked about Green Bay, because Green Bay went to Dallas and blew their doors off. And I agree with you. I didn't think the Dallas's roster was that great last year. They did nothing to improve it. If we're like into the second week of free agency and Dallas is just over there sitting on their hands, And all these Cowboy fans are using that funny gif of that person poking something with a stick saying, come on, do something. They didn't tell me how they improved their roster tremendously from last year.
They've gotten worse. And right now they have Ezekiel Elliott as their starting running back.
There you go.
Now there's rumors that they're going to sign Dalvin Cook like right now, like anytime in the next couple of days, that before the season starts, Dalvin Cook will be there. So I mean, I guess maybe that's interesting, but can Ezekiel Elliott and Dalvin Cook still run the ball? I don't know. Those are names. That's better than not names. And I just want to say too, Washington's is going to be an interesting team. I don't think they're going to be a 3 or 4 or 5 win team. I think they're going to do better than that. Jaden Daniels has always been composed, and I think he's again going to be a rookie and he's going to have some struggles. But the fact that he does have Austin Eckler, who's going to be still a good receiving running back. Terry McLaurin, I think, is the most underrated wide receiver in football. And he's super talented. He's got Zach Ertz as well. They signed. So a couple of really grizzly veterans that can catch the ball, and Ertz and Eckler, they'll just be good outlets. They're going to normally be open. And then somebody like McLaurin that he can throw the ball downfield to. If they can keep him protected, which they have a decent offensive line, that's a sneaky team that's going to beat a few people and I think they're going to have a lot of hype going into 2025 by the end of this year.
How much does Jaden Daniels weigh? Ballpark
220.
Really? He seems like a frail little guy to me. I mean, not little. We're not talking Bryce Young, but it doesn't seem like he's built.
He's 6'4". He's just taller than there's so many 6 foot tall quarterbacks now that when you see somebody thinner, you just. True. Yeah, I agree. He looks like he's 185 pounds.
Yeah.
No, he came when he left LSU. He was just over 210. So he's probably put on some. That the millionaire diet probably helps. But no, he's 6'4", 220.
Okay. All right, fair enough. All right, let's go to the final division here, the NFC West. A lot of people would say that this is a one-horse race because the San Francisco 49ers were the NFC representative in the Super Bowl last year, but you have the Seattle Seahawks under a new coach. Still not sure about their quarterback situation. You've got the Arizona Cardinals there, and who's the last team that I'm forgetting here?
Rams.
Oh yeah, the Rams. I think the Rams of the teams that can compete, if they can stay healthy, and that's a big if, whether you talk about Puka Nacua, who just returned to practice, Cooper Kupp has to stay healthy, Matthew Stafford missed most of the preseason. What's your take on this NFC West and who could compete most with the 49ers?
Well, the team that can compete with them is the Rams. Kyron Williams playing in his second year. The thing different that the Rams have this year, I love Matthew Stafford. I think he's one of the most talented quarterbacks in football, but he's going to miss 2 or 3 games at some point. He's really tough. He comes back from injuries faster than expected. The one thing the Rams have this year that's different than in the past is their backup quarterback is Jimmy Garoppolo. And while I'm not a big Garoppolo fan, he can hold it together to stay healthy for a game and a half. And if it's just the right times against, they're not going to beat the Chiefs with Jimmy Garoppolo, but they can beat some other NFL teams instead of playing Stetson Bennett or somebody like that.
Right.
So I think that's interesting what they can do. And then we also heard from the Rams today. Andrew Whitworth, former Rams and LSU great, said that he thinks that if the Rams are competing at the end of this season, that in November, December, you might see an Aaron Donald return.
Oh, I could see that.
I could see that. Aaron Donald's not done. I think he's done with that training camp, but he ain't done.
Well, I said the same thing about JJ Watt too, and he stayed away at least for now, though he looks like he's in great shape, by the way. But so I let me also say this about the NFC West. I am not a firm believer that this is a gimme for the 49ers.
Agreed.
I have watched a lot of 49ers football. Unfortunately, I've been glued to their stupid situation because of a receiver named Brandon Ayuk.
Did y'all pay for him yet?
Not as of this being recorded, no. Rumors are we are.
Any day now.
It's any day. But also, the Trent Williams thing is going to drag on. And I don't think Brock Purdy's run for his freaking life this preseason. he has been out there, and Kyle Shanahan's put him out there with like the second and third string guys. Like, what are you doing? This is your starting quarterback, the guy that got you to an NFC championship and a Super Bowl the last 2 years. I just don't think the 49ers they don't look right. Now, granted, Christian McCaffrey's not playing, and he has been rehabbing / resting throughout the entire preseason and training camp, but I do have some question marks about the 49ers. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, my thing's always been with them, and I said this last year. It's kind of this holistic thing of the Brock Purdy. I don't think is as good as Brock Purdy gets credit for. I don't think he's as bad as I did a year ago. I'll back off a little bit, but the Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and Christian McCaffrey, keep the three of them healthy, and they make every team good.
Right.
The three of them don't stay healthy. And if Deebo or Christian McCaffrey is missing, all of a sudden Brandon Ayuk disappears because he's not a number one. Sorry, Steelers fans.
No, but Ayuk is the one that stays healthy, though.
He is, but he does really good when everybody's focusing on Deebo and Christian, and he's just being guarded by the other guy. When all of a sudden Brandon Ayuk is the man, he disappears.
Yeah.
So I just think that they're just one tweak of injury. And Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey do get hurt in their careers. They've been pretty consistent.
Yeah.
When you miss one of them, it gets worse. I also want to say, like, are the Arizona Cardinals being hated on worse than they should be? Because they're getting like into like the 3 worst teams in football kind of records. And if you believe in Kyler Murray, like, they're not real deep at receiver, but they basically have Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride, the tight end. But if he's a real NFL starting quarterback, they shouldn't be getting quite the hate they're getting, right?
I'm not a believer in Kyler Murray.
Okay. So
but like when you said it, if you're a believer in Kyler Murray, like, I'm not. I think they do have a roster that's improving. They're getting rid of a lot of the Cliff Kingsbury mess that he created when he was there. But
except for Kyler Murray.
Except for Kyler Murray, because they paid him that ridiculous contract and they're stuck. So I think outside of that, I think they're moving in the right direction. I just don't think they're there yet. Let me ask you one more question about the 49ers. Brandon Ayuk, Trent Williams, are both of those guys on the 49ers this year? Let's start there, and then I'll ask you a follow-up.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. And are both there in the lineup in week 1?
No.
Okay. So which one do you think holds out into the regular season?
Trent Williams.
Okay.
Trent Williams has been holding out. I don't think Trent Williams is working out 5 days a week, ready for just, as soon as they give me the money, I'm stepping in. Cardio's good. I'm ready. Yeah. I think he's a pro. He might be the best offensive lineman in football, but I don't think he's ready to step in and play week 1 if they sign him tomorrow.
He's pulling a Chris Jones from the Chiefs last year. Did the same thing.
Yeah.
And he actually was probably fresher at the end of the season because of it.
I mean, are they going to wait for Brock Purdy to get sacked 5 times in week 1 before giving him money?
Maybe. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. All right. Let's wrap up the show real quick. AFC, what do you think is the most competitive division amongst all 4 AFC divisions?
Man, it's that AFC East. That the Jets, Bills, and Dolphins. That's going to be fun. I'll be interested the last 3 weeks. I think they can all be fighting to see who's going to have 12 or 13 wins. I think it'll be a lot of fun with them.
I'm going to go with the North because I feel like every matchup you have some type of marquee lineup that you can have. So go to the AFC East. I'm not disagreeing with you as it pertains to the top 3, but you always have the Patriots in the mix. So the AFC North has 4 competent teams that even if it's Steelers, Browns, you've got Watt, Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, Myles Garrett. You do have those storylines. I'm going to go with the North. Shocker. I know. But let's go to the NFC.
I think the Steelers are 1 wide receiver away from being right there with those other 3 teams.
I mean, you mentioned that Ayuk's good with another receiver. There's a guy named George Pickens in Pittsburgh who's pretty good, would be a good deterrent to keep him from seeing all that double coverage. I'm just saying. I don't know. Well, anyways, let's go to the NFC. What's your most competitive NFC division?
I'm going to give it to the NFC North, where I'm not necessarily a Love fan. I think that the Packers are going to be good enough to win some games, and I think the Bears at the end of the season are going to come on. I think that the Lions, Packers, and Bears can be within a couple of games of each other by week 13, 14 and be interesting in the season.
I agree with you. I went with the NFC North as well as the most competitive division. So, all right, this is a wrap on the very first episode for your viewing pleasure. I'm really looking forward to this show. It's going to be a little bit different next week. This is more of just an overview, getting you ready for the regular season. But this is going to be a fun show that'll air before the games on Thursday. So make sure you check it out on our FFSN NFL podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on our Fans First Sports Network YouTube channel. But Wesley, go ahead and tell everyone where they can find you on social media and what you're doing for the Dome Patrol podcast.
Yeah, we got the Dome Patrol podcast, which is at Dome Patrol PCast on Twitter or X. And then you can talk to me at WhoDatWesley13. Jeff, how can we find you?
I mean, if you listen to the podcast, you hear my voice enough. But if you want to follow my Steelers coverage, it's at Steel Curtain Network, Steel CU Network on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter myself, J Hartman, HARTMAN_PIT. But that's it, man. Good first show. I'll see you next week for another For Your Viewing Pleasure. Take it easy, Wesley.
Thanks, Jeff.